Hi, it's Annette Baou, and welcome to the Millionaire Insider. Thank you so much for joining us. For over 30 years, I've been advising and researching the top 1% and 2% of millionaires to learn what those with amazing lives do differently. And now I'm providing you practical, easy to implement insight and ideas so you can win in your business, your life, and with your money, and ultimately achieve financial freedom. And today, my friends, you're in for another amazing conversation that I'm having with Steve Ledson of Ledson Winery. Now, I conducted this conversation, this interview, a few years ago, and when I was going back and reviewing it, thinking, oh, I should have a new one, there were so many nuggets in this conversation, I had to share it with you. And what I want you to do is I want you to listen to it again, and then take notes. And I guarantee you, every time you listen to it, you're going to pick up new nuggets. Every time I listen to it, I pick up nuggets, and I've listened to it probably a dozen times. It's that good. So I encourage you not only to listen to it, take notes, but apply it. It's going to have such a dramatic impact on your business. And please subscribe. We want to know that you like the content and that you can get notifications each time we have a new episode. So hit subscribe, and then please comment. Tell me what you like about it. People that not only comment, but show me how they're applying the material, get one of our mugs. I love sharing our mugs. So let's dive in. Today's episode is brought to you by the 3 insider secrets to generate leads. You can go to millionaireseries.com/lead generation if you want more insight, more support on how to attract and identify ideal, profitable prospects so that you can win in your business. Please go to millionaireseries.com/lead generation. The 3 insider secrets to generate leads provides you the insight you need to really take your business and life to the next level. So please take advantage of this free training. So we always have a disclosure. All materials and intellectual property are copywritten by themillionaireseries.com. The information we provide is not intended to replace your advisor or specialist or provide investment, financial, tax, retirement, or any advice or health care advice. Before beginning any plan, you agree to consult with your own team of advisors and to review your situation. All participants agree to hold millionaireseries.com and its affiliates harmless for results achieved or not achieved, and all international copyrights are reserved. So for today's show notes and resources, go to millionaireseries.com/108. For all shows, go to millionaireseries.com/MI. And as always, I have another free resource for you. If you're really interested in what millionaires do differently so that you can get insight on them so you can better serve them or you can become one, you can go to millionaireseries.com/20MIS. Again, that's millionaireseries.com/20MIS for the 20 Millionaire Insider Secrets. They're 20 of the best Millionaire Insider Secrets I have discovered over the last 30 years. So let's dive into my conversation with Steve Ledson. So I want to begin with a really funny story. So the first time I was up at Ledson Winery was several years ago, and we had been through different wineries. We were up with a group of our friends, and we were having a really good time, and it was kind of like Ledson was like the best kept secret because it's at the end of the road in Sonoma. And we get there, and I walk in, I'm like, oh my God, I love this place. It had roses everywhere. It's this beautiful castle. And I walk in and I'm like, I could live here. And everyone kind of stopped and looked and they started laughing. And the gentleman that was giving us a tour said this was going to be Steve Ledson's house. And I'm like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. Because I've been in so many castles and most of them are so cold and just, you're like, I could never live here. But it was just unbelievable, the charm and the warmth. And so I want to hear that story because it was just so unbelievable. So why don't you begin by sharing that story with us?
Yeah, basically what happened is I was building the castle there it took me a couple of years just to build the main castle. And during that time frame, several thousand people would come by there and stop and look at it. And they would always say, well, when's the winery going to be done? When's the winery going to be done? And I would say, oh, it's not a winery, it's my personal house. And I would even see people that would be climbing up on the scaffolding. I finally put a fence around it just to keep people out. I was worried about the liability of it. That still didn't work. People would climb over the fence. And during the day, of course, we'd have to leave the gate open, so people would come up to the castle and ask when the winery's going to open, and it was annoying. And then I finally moved into the guest house side. I had it all done, and I was just finishing up the main part of it. And people would start showing up early in the morning. People would be on their way to work and stop, or tourists would be out and stop in, and I'd find myself outside talking to people at 7, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm trying to get to work, and I was thinking, oh, man, this is crazy. And I was complaining about it one day to my superintendent. I said, this is really getting annoying. I don't know if I can live here. He says, well, I'll tell you what, I'll work for you for nothing. And I said, what? What are you talking about? He says, I just want a piece of the wine sales. This fruit that you're growing here, you're selling to St. Francis, and I've heard you guys talk to some of the best Merlot in the country. And if the wine's that good and all these people are stopping here, I just put a little stand, like a lemonade stand, but a wine stand down at the highway, and I could sell so much wine, it'd be way more than me. And I started thinking about that, and I was talking to the wife about it, and I said, I enjoy people. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm out here at 7, 8, 9, sometimes 10 o'clock in the morning, or at night when I come home. I'm out there talking to people all the time, so I actually enjoy that. But at some point, I got to be able to get away from it. So I don't know if I can keep the house here. I said, maybe we should think about doing that. The family's been in the business forever, going clear back into the 1800s. And I said, maybe we should think about it. So I started looking into it and went to the Planning Commission to see about getting approvals. And they said, oh, yeah, you could do it. Well, when I applied to the Planning Commission, they denied it. And so I had to have it appealed to the Board of Supervisors. And they approved it, but it took me, probably close to a year time I was prepared for the Planning Commission, turned down the Planning Commission, prepared for the Board of Supervisors, and then was approved by the Board of Supervisors. Then I had to redo the building for the building department because since it was commercial, it had a whole different list of codes. That took me a year to get that approved, changing the engineering, and then it took me another, say, at least a year to do all the retrofitting and have the building redone. So we started, I think, in 95, and we opened in July of 1999 in the castle. We got a temporary approval for what we were calling the double wide. People still come in today and say, I'm a club member. I go back to the double wide days, and what it was a double wide trailer that we had rented for a couple of years that we had on site there. Once we got the initial approval, we got a double wide trailer and fixed all up, and we still have the first club member, the Holcombs, that walked in that trailer, and they're the one that suggested to my son, who was working at that time, saying, well, do you have a wine club? And he said, well, no. And they said, well, you should have a wine club. And he says, well, hang on a second, I'll phone my dad. So Mike phones my phone. He goes, hey, do we have a wine club? And I said, no. He goes, a fellow here said that we should have a wine club. And I said, okay, well, he says, he'd ship him a case every month or 2 bottles a month. And I said, well, start with everyone he wants. So we started a wine club and started shipping them, and then we just started selling club after club after club.
Oh, I'm sure.
So it's so funny how we ended up getting back into the business like that.
So originally you just started selling your grapes to other wineries?
Right. Yeah, our family had a winery called Cuttingham Ridge on my grandmother's side for years, and during Prohibition they closed that winery down, but we continued in the ranching business and growing of grapes for years. And one of my uncles, Whit, he went to work for the Cundy family for 20 years and managed all their vineyards and planted all their stuff. And then my other uncle went to work for B.R. Cohen and planted all their vineyards. And my dad kept farming vineyards for different people scattered around the valley and stuff. And we had a few of our own. We sold to Sebastiani. Well, originally we were selling to Pagani, which is now Kenwood Winery. So we were in that business for years, and I'd made wine with the family for years. Of course, my dad and all his uncles, they all made wine. And so in 93, I started making some wines again off of that vineyard. But the first vintage that I released was 93, and I made it with the winemaker from St. Francis, Tom Mackey. Tom and I got to be really good friends, and he was the one that thought the fruit was so excellent, and I started making the wine with him, and I said, boy, this is excellent fruit. So, yeah, it just expanded from that, and then we just started using more and more of our own grapes, and then we started purchasing grapes from other people.
So one of the things I just have to comment as far as your wine is the quality of it. Like, it is some of the best wine available on the marketplace. In fact, your late harvest Zinfandel was so good. and that I actually bought every bottle I could find throughout the United States. It's unbelievable. But what I love is that obviously you're doing it right, meaning some people start getting bigger and the quality goes down, but you haven't done that. And it's kind of, it's just unbelievable. And I would love to hear, I'd kind of like to hear the story around that. You know, how have you kept your quality so good even with your growth?
Well, I'll tell you, years ago, my father had said to me one time, I can't even remember what I was asking him to make, something in our shop. And he turns to me and says to me, he says, well, I can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. For some reason, that stuck in my head. And my whole life growing up, my father and my grandparents, everybody was really into doing things right, the right way. My great-grandfather was English and very proper, and everything had to be just perfect. And so they really stressed that with me all the time. And in making a wine, it's just like my dad said. I mean, I can't make a decent wine without really good fruit. And we've been growing fruit for 150 years. And 90 to 95% of the quality of a bottle of wine starts in the vineyard. It's in the appellation, the soil, the clones, and the way you farm it. So we've never stopped doing that. Like I said, for 150 years, we really stay on top of our farming practices, and that's what's helped me. That's one of the things that helps me keep the quality up. The second is because our family's been here so long in this valley that besides the fruit we grow ourselves, my dad, who's recently passed away, knows every single person in this valley, everybody. And so he would go around, and he was always a great sales guy, always really good talk. Everybody loved my father, and just an incredible personality. And so we were able to get all these fruit contracts for years from people, and just of the best fruit. And then on top of that, we make 70 different lots of wine a year, and we go through and hand pick all the best blocks of the vineyards, all the best barrels. We have 70 different wines to blend from, and anything that doesn't meet our standard, I sell the juice off to somebody else. Our whole program is based on quality, not necessarily quantity, but quality.
Yeah, we actually buy your options, and because your wine is just so good, it's like a no-brainer. But you have a label with Jeff Bridges, and he actually signed our bottle, and you've done some things with him that benefit your Harmony Foundation for Children. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I've known Jeff for years. I originally met Jeff back when I think it was 86. The house that I live in now, I bought this piece of property for development back in 86, and a fellow came by one day and said, hey, we're looking for a site to do a movie. And I said, oh, yeah, what do you think? And he says, well, this is a perfect site to do the movie Tucker. And then he explained to me about the old car and everything. And like I said, I like old things, stuff like that. Looked into it more, and he said that George Lucas was actually the producer of the film, and Francis Ford Coppola was a director, and that Jeff Bridges was going to be the main actor in that movie. And so I signed on with them, and it was quite an experience for me. I hung out at the film site every day and talked to Francis and watched all the filming and got to be good friends with Jeff.
Oh.
And then it was pretty interesting. And I'd been, of course, his brother Bo. I met his brother Bo and sister Cindy, got to know the whole family, went down to Southern California several times for dinner at their house. But how I actually got to make the wine with Jeff is that I met Michael McDonald quite a few years back. And when I first started the Harmony Foundation, I contacted Michael and asked him if he'd be interested in making some wine with me and what he thought about, doing a concert up and raising money for the Harmony Foundation we have for children. And he said, oh, sure, Steve, I'd love to do that. So we made a Zinfandel from our estate Zen vineyard, and he came up and did this big concert, and we raised, $100,000 in money for the Harmony Foundation. And after I'd done the concert with Michael, I'd said to him that night at dinner, he said to me, who are you going to get now? He said, this turned out to be a great event. He was like, something you ought to keep doing. I said, I want to keep doing it. He said, well, who are you going to get? I said, geez, I don't know. I haven't thought about it. He says, well, how about a friend of mine? I got a good friend of mine that would like to do this with you. And I said, who's that? He goes, Jeff Bridges. And I said, oh, you're kidding me. I know Jeff really well. So he picked up the phone and phoned Jeff up, and I started chatting with him. He goes, oh, Steve, I'd love to do that with you. So I flew down to Southern California, met with him, and put another package together, and that program raised a few hundred, I think $400 and something thousand for the Harmony Foundation. So it just keeps growing. We just finishing up right now with what's called the Catch wine. Dwight Clark had called me one time. He knew Jeff and Michael McDonald. So he had called me one time and wanted to do something, and so I just got together with him and did that project, produced about another $500,000 in money.
Now, tell us about this Harmony Foundation for Children. Who does it benefit? Who do the proceeds go to?
Well, I'll tell you a bit about how that came about. Growing up, I played a lot of sports in my life and coached a lot of, all the way from peanuts through seniors, some of the higher end, not professional baseball teams, but really close to that. And in those travelings, made a lot of friends with different baseball players, Derek Jeter and people, and I've always really liked the sports. And during that time, a lot of kids would come to me for lessons like on pitching or batting or just any type of coaching. And I found out through that time that there was a lot of really talented kids in the world that didn't get the opportunities to do things they wanted to do because for several reasons. Their parents could be dead, or their parents could be on drugs, or their parents just didn't have it together, didn't have any money, but tons of reasons. And I actually probably raised another, 30 kids in my life that belonged to other people, just growing up and helping them. And because of that, when I quit playing sports about 5 or 6 years ago, I wanted to try to continue to help kids. And different people would write into the winery and want to know if we could donate wine to this or to that. And doing that research, I found out that a lot of the money didn't really get to the kids. It went to a lot of other costs,
Yeah.
And that kind of frustrated me a lot, too. So I said, I'm going to start my own foundation where a kid can write in himself and ask me if I can help him pay for his music lessons or get a guitar or buy a bicycle for his paper route or take another class at the college or something, something just to, because kids are the future of America.
Yeah.
So I said, I've got to figure out a way that I can make a difference in the world with kids. And so what we've done since then, we teamed up with another foundation. A little girl was 13 years old that got cancer and passed away. One of her wishes were that she wanted her parents to help raise money for kids for musical instruments or music lessons or, like the school she was going to, they were dropping the music course.
Yeah.
And so we funded music lessons. We've helped buy pianos. We've helped buy guitars, violins. You name it. And a lot of that we did for the Savannah Hill Foundation. And then another thing that sticks in my mind right away is there was a little boy that was like 7 years old, and he had gotten cancer, and the doctor told him he was terminally ill, and the parents told him that, he actually wasn't going to live and wanted to know what he wanted to do in his life. And one thing he said he always wanted to do was swim with the whales. So we sent him over to Hawaii with his parents, and one of the last things that he did was, swim with the whales.
Oh, wow.
So
that gets me goosebumps.
he's since then passed on. But, I don't know, simple things like a kid in Sonoma, father backed over his bicycle and then blamed the son because he left a bike behind the car, and so he wasn't going to buy the son a bike, and the son needed the bike just to get to his work after school. So he was getting excellent grades in school, had never been in any trouble, and so we bought him a new bike.
That's awesome. That is just great. There are so many kids that need help, and I just love hearing stories like this where you're really making a difference to kids that need it, and maybe even ones that don't qualify for support. So that is just fantastic.
Kids are the future of America, and with the state now in California, there's a lot of programs that get cut off. We did a lot of work with the schools in Sonoma County, and especially a lot in the Sonoma Valley, where the state cut off the field trips. They couldn't pay for the buses, and so we ended up, I don't know how many different classes and stuff we paid for the buses for the field trips, and you can't even imagine how rewarding that ended up being for us. They'd invite me to the class afterwards, and the class would personally say thank you, and then they would write something on the board or draw a picture of what they thought was, the best part of the field trip. And then some of the classes, each individual student would send me a letter and thank me for, the field trip, tell me what they learned from it. Just some incredible stuff, just really incredible stuff. And it really starts to get tears in my eyes when I start thinking about, all these kids in the world that are out there that don't get the opportunities that I've had in my life growing up with my family, being on a ranch, everybody being real close, having all these different opportunities in life. And I think of kids that could have lost their parents or at least lost their dad or be in a home because their parents would be doing drugs. There's so many crazy things in the world, and they just don't get the opportunity. They have the potential, but they don't get the opportunities.
Amen. That is so true, and it's just great. And I love how you're bringing big names into it, because it just does really have an impact on so many people's lives. So what I want to talk about for a minute is the winery, which you refer to as the castle throughout the world. But when you built it, you did something in your mind, like where you'd see something and then you'd build it. And I truly believe it is one of the most beautiful castles and places I've ever been to. I absolutely love it. So maybe you could just briefly describe the process. You obviously build custom homes, correct?
Right. Yes, we do all our own design, and we've built over 3,000 homes scattered around Northern California. So that house was a really interesting thing. I originally bought the piece of property because it looked on my grandfather, Barker Boodle Ledson's ranch. And so that's the reason that I bought where I bought. But when we got into the design process, I would wake up in the middle of the night with all these thoughts in my mind about the house, and then I couldn't go back to sleep. And so what I learned from years of that happening to me is if I get up and write down what's on my mind, or jot down, or go, send an email to myself, or do something that allows me to get out of my mind, I'll go back to sleep. So with this house, I started sketching these thoughts in my mind with this house, and I started waking up, 3 or 4 times a week and developing this plan. And then pretty soon I had the plan pretty far along, the elevation, so I taped a copy of it to the ceiling because I thought, wow, I'm designing this for my sleep. So I taped it to the ceiling over my bed, and I look at it when I fall asleep. And when I dream about the house. And I literally designed the majority of that building from thoughts and dreams at night. It's
Wow.
crazy. People have asked me before, well, this house looks very European. When I actually designed that house, I'd never been to Europe. My family originally, back in the 17 and early 1800s was from Europe, and I really don't know what that connection is there or where all these thoughts came in my head, but that's how it came about.
Oh yeah, that is tapping into your subconscious mind. That is awesome. I love it. So I want to talk for 1 minute. You're a 5th generation, and obviously you've taken things to a completely different level. But I want to understand some of the choices and decisions that you've made that have had such an impact and made such a difference in your life. You're obviously at a point where you share a little bit about creating the castle, but walk me through the thought process when some of the key decisions had to be made in your life and how you've gone through those to get from where you were to where you are today.
When you go through life, in everybody's life, a lot of things happen. A lot of things come up, and I think one of the things that's made me successful is that I analyze everything that happens to me, and I don't ever really look at anything in a negative way. I always look at it in a positive way, and I always try to find the good side of something. Even if somebody gets in an automobile accident, or somebody doesn't, a case of wine got broke, or who knows if things that go on in life, you failed a class, or, just things happen to us in life. And I've learned that any time that you let that bring you down or overcome you, I guess once you say, well, I have a problem, you honestly have a problem. But if you say I have an issue, then you have an issue and you can continue to work on it. So I've always tried to work on the positive side of everything. And by doing that, it allows me to learn from my mistakes. I'll tell you one of the things that happened to me when I was real young. I was 5 years old, and it was on a weekend, and I was out on the ranch. And my dad had picked a lot of the prunes on the ranch, and we had dumped them all on the floor in the barn, and we'd go through, pick them up with a shovel and run them over a conveyor belt and sort them and wash them off before we send them to CPC, which was California Packing Corporation. And when he was inside working, I'd work on the belt, picking stuff off even at 5 years old, but I'd tire and I want to go do something else. As a kid, you want to play a little bit. So I went out and I built this house in front of the door of the barn, and I built it 3 stories high out of prune boxes. And you couldn't stand up in it. I mean, even at my age, at 5, I had to kind of kneel to go through it. And I could get up to the 3rd floor, and my dad was trying to hose me out with a hose. He'd pour in the water all over this barn that I built out of prune boxes, or this actually like a house, 3-story house. And he couldn't get me wet. I mean, if I stayed in one spot, it kind of dripped down on me. But I kind of laughed, and he'd keep trying to squirt me. And I was so excited about this building I built, and he was so proud of it. It was so beautiful, and this greatest thing. And so we went home Sunday night, and, man, all I could think about at school was getting back out to the ranch on the weekend and going to work, playing in my new house and all this stuff. And when I drove up, the house was gone. I was devastated. I said to my dad, I said, what happened to the house, Dad? He goes, son, I tore it down. I go, what? Why did you tear my house down? Why? He goes, well, you need to learn a lesson in life, he says. Location, location, location. You built the house in front of the door. When they come to get the prunes, there was no way to get to it without tearing it down. But it's a good lesson for you, because before you build any other project in your life, as I can see right now that you're going to be constructing something. I don't know what you're going to be making or building or doing something. You just like to develop. You need to think about location, because if you build something where somebody's going to tear it down, or if you build a house next to this junky building, or you build on a bad road, or if you make a product from a bad wine, or, just all that negative side of stuff, and that stuck in my head forever. Location, location, location. If you think about real estate or think about anything you do in life, just the house you live in, depending on where it's located to other things, the value changes.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about where the castle is, it's built right on Highway 12. It's a very, very busy highway. So it's location, location, location. Look at the restaurant on the square. Right. It's built on historic Sonoma Square. Again, location, location, location. One of the projects I'm doing now called Armstrong Estates is all these Victorian-style homes that's been written up in almost every magazine there is 5 blocks off the Sonoma Square. Location, location again. So I think that's made me successful. That's one thing that's really helped me a lot in life, is analyzing the things that I do when I do them wrong, as opposed to being down, put my head down and saying I got a problem, or I really goofed up, or this is bad.
Mm-hmm.
I could give you a bunch of examples, too, in life, that things have gone on in my life where I've taken the positive roads to the negative road. And This isn't a perfect world. Things are going to happen to every one of us.
One thing I find fascinating is when you put more positive energies towards something, more positive things happen, as compared to if you focus on the negative, you get more of the negative.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the reasons I've been so successful with all these different kids that I've helped mature and grow up and given jobs to and everything else in life, is because I don't dwell on the negative things or things that have happened to their life or the things that have been problems. I look at those to analyze them, to learn from them, but I dwell on the things that are doing good, so they always have a smile on their face and they're always happy. You know yourself, if you feel good in a day, you seem to get a lot more work done. The day goes by is great, but if you're not feeling good, it's hard to learn, it's hard to function, it's hard to go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just trying to be a positive person no matter what happens is the way to go. I was in the hospital here, I had a couple of hernia operations, and I was in there a total of 45 days over 3 different operations, and the doctor said to me, he says, I've never had a patient like you before. I said, what do you mean? He says, you went through literally hell. And he says, you never once complained. He says, you never said anything. You never said, why did you do this, or how much longer is it going to be, or nothing. I said, well, why would I bring that up? Why do I want to talk about the negative side? I listened to what you said. You told me the steps I had to go through. I could see progress every day. Yeah, I didn't like being here. But if I started talking about it, I really want to be here.
Right.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. Those are huge lessons. Are there any other things that were like crossroads for you? Obviously, you talked about how you decided to take a home and make a winery. That's major. But were there any other decisions that you think that have been material in getting you from where you were to where you are today that you'd like to share?
Well, let's see. I think probably, to sum it all up, the biggest thing is just that I really analyze things in great depth, and I filled in my mind it's a memory bank of things that happen with certain situations. Like I would watch a pattern of the person that worked for me for 10, 15, 20 years, and from watching the pattern of what he's doing, I would be able to talk to him in a constructive way. I could see the things that he was having problems with, seeing the things that he failed on over and over and over and over again, and was able to give them positive direction and work on the things they need to work on. I analyze the things I do myself every day. I analyze every wine I make. I taste it. I have a bottle of every wine I've made in my cellar. several of them, and I watch how my winemaking gets better, or if I have a place where it's not quite as good, I want to know why. What did I do wrong? And I go back through my processes and figure out, well, what did I do wrong, as opposed to saying, that's a terrible wine, I can't believe I made this. That's terrible. I turn it into positive. I say, well, this wine is as good as the wine I made last year, or this wine could still be better. It's great, but it could be better.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always gathering information and analyzing everything. The other thing I've learned is I tell people, I have this saying, I say, don't believe anything I tell you. And they go, huh? Well, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, I want you to think about this. You really shouldn't believe anything anybody tells you. Because if you just lock on to somebody says, oh, did you know that so-and-so did this? And you just lock on and say, oh, yeah, they did, huh? And now you tell the next person, oh, did you know so-and-so did that? Then you can't grow. You're stuck. You're hung up right there. What you should do is tell the person, I hear what you're saying, and it makes sense to me. I understand it, but I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to watch that over time, and I'm going to see if I can make it better for you, if I learn something or what. Because people all the time will tell you this is what's happening, that's what's happening. But if you watch it, when I say don't believe in me, that doesn't mean don't listen to what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
They listen, but analyze everything everybody's telling you and see how much there is behind it, because everybody can talk a good story, but you have to be able to follow through on it. So if you analyze everything and think about it, you will make more of the right decisions. I have, in growing up in my years, if you want to find things that I've done wrong, as any kid would do probably, when you're excited, you want to do things fast, you would just do something immediately and make the wrong decision. Do something really quick, as opposed to thinking it through and maybe watching it for a little longer and analyzing it. Just simple things. I remember working on the hay baler when I was a kid, and one of the knotters quit tying. It had 3 knotters on it, would tie a bale with 3 strings, and the one outside one kept missing and missing and missing. And I tried for, half an hour making certain adjustments that I thought I was doing right, and I just got upset, took the knotter off, and went down and bought another one, put it on the baler. And my dad came out, and there was one little piece that was missing on it. He looked right at it, and I could have just called him on the phone. Instead of locking on to what I thought was wrong, well, my dad been on the baler for years, I could have just called my dad and say, hey, Dad, I'm having a problem. He'd have come over and looked at it, showed me right then. I wouldn't have spent all the money on a knotter. So it's just little things like that where you make a really too quick of a decision before you really look at what's going on. I think that's helped me a lot in life, being able to do that.
So it clearly shows through in the quality of your wine. In fact, we bought every bottle of the Late Harvest Zinfandel we could because it was so good. And then you guys have that process where you dip the wine glasses in chocolate and then you pour it in and drink it. Oh my gosh, it's just heaven. It's unbelievable. But like the attention to detail at your winery is off the charts. Obviously, I love your attitude and I love that you focus on the positive. And I want to switch gears for 1 minute and kind of find out a little bit more about, we all have fears in life, sometimes doubt, sometimes crossroads. What are some of the things that you have done or your thought process that's helped you when you've been at one of those crossroads and you've not maybe known what to do or you've gotten off track? At some point you're saying, I need to dive deeper to really figure something out. Can you walk us through your process on what you do in a situation like that?
Well, when you say that, one of the first things that comes to mind to me is my father, because my father would phone me every day of my life. We were like best friends, and whether I was living at his house or, when I was living at the house, he'd pick me up after school, or if when I was driving my car, I'd meet him out in the vineyard or somewhere, and we spent a lot of hours together. I didn't even really go over to kids' houses when I was a teenager growing up and stuff, maybe 2 or 3 times in my life. My dad would always invite everybody over to the ranch and say, when your chores are done, you guys can play then, and all my friends love that. And so I had a very, very close relationship with my father, and think back on it now, there was lots of times where he would call me and I'd be really busy with something and need to get off the phone, and I'd say, oh, geez, Dad, I'm really busy right now. I'll call you a little bit later, and then I wouldn't call him later because I'd be so busy, and then he'd call me the next morning, hey, how's it going? And maybe that time I'd talk, but, I spent a lot of time with my father and talking. But when he passed away, it was really hard for me because I thought back about all the time that I said, "Oh, Dad, I'm so busy right now. I got to run." And that's kind of set me back for a while, because I always had my dad that I could call and say, I know this is going on or that's going on. And he'd give me advice, even though he was 89 years old when he passed away, and we still had great conversations. And so when he passed away, it was really hard for me. There was really nobody that I could really talk to about it or try to figure out, how do I deal with life, because all of a sudden life looks different.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't look the same, and I can't explain really what that's like. I mean, if you've gone through it, you know it, because, one day your parents are there, and then all of a sudden your parents aren't there, and all the things, my life as I was growing up, I'd be always doing things to make my parents proud of what I was doing, and now all of a sudden my parents aren't there, and I can remember people saying, even to this day, would say to me, "Oh, your dad was so proud of you, he always talked so highly of you," and I gave away those moments to be busy working, to get the work done when I could have talked to him, and it was really, really hard for me, and I had to reach inside myself and figure out how am I going to deal with this. And when I did that, I started feeling like my dad was around me again, and when I'd have thoughts about stuff, I could hear his answer, whether he's really there around you and talking to you, or whether it's just your mind goes back to when he used to give you answers before. And by doing that, I could become relaxed again with it and start getting refocused and live my life again. But for the first year, it was really hard. It was really tough for me.
I don't know if you've thought about it, but I mean, how many people can say that they've been kind of quasi-father to 30 kids? Clearly, the impact your father had on you was great. That's awesome. So I love the fact that you feel like you have a conversation with him. You've gotten back to now where you are today, and you sometimes feel like you're having a conversation with him, and I can so relate, because that's how it is with my father, who's no longer living. But it's just like your focus has changed a little bit.
Yeah, things would come up, and I'm a very strong person, and I analyze stuff, and I don't make quick decisions, but I would find myself saying, geez, I don't really want to do this. I just don't have the drive. I just don't. I'm tired. And I couldn't understand what the heck was going on with me. I'm really not that old, and it just was really frustrating me, and I'd find myself crying at times. So it was pretty tough. It's still pretty tough.
Well, I appreciate your sharing that with us. I think sometimes we all do that. We take for granted things in our life. We don't really realize how important they are until they're not there. One of the things that's so great about your winery is it's kind of like you're taking on the legacy. I don't know if you've ever really thought about it, but can you imagine how proud he is as he's looking at what you've done? You've been given this, and you could have just kind of sat back and maybe been like a quasi-trust funder, but you haven't. I mean, you've really gotten out there and done some amazing things, and your father has to be so proud of you, and I just think that's so impressive. I mean, there's so many people that get handed money and they just basically wither it away, or they're more focused in on buying stuff and doing stuff for themselves and really impacting other people. And you've not done that. You're affecting thousands of people's lives, not only in their home, but also their kids. To me, that's what it's all about. A lot of people don't get that. I just love seeing somebody that doesn't have to do it, doesn't have to work, doesn't have to take it to the next level, really doing it, really making an impact. And in fact, you're just doing amazing things on all fronts. And that's absolutely awesome. And it's a choice. Once you get to a certain point in your life when you're working because you want to work versus because you have to work, I mean, that's a game changer. And that's what you're doing.
What you're saying is exactly true. I have over 100 employees working for me, and a lot of them have kids. Some of them don't, but they have homes. They own homes. They rent homes. They have cars. They have payments. They have food to pay for, haircuts, vacations to go on. They have a life to live, and they depend on, my coaching of the business. The things that I say and do, the actions that I take every single day affect their paycheck, affect their family, their lives, their schooling, everything. And one of the things I got from my father since he's passed on, and thoughts that would come in my head when I was missing my father, was telling me that, I had a lot of people that counted on me, and so I had to be strong and keep the business going, and so that's helped a lot.
That's awesome. And your employees love you. And it's funny because it's not always like that. I mean, one of the things I always find fascinating, I start talking with people and you really can quickly sum up what's going on, and your employees love you. And so whatever you're doing right.
Well, thank you so much.
No, I mean it, because you go there, and especially, you're drinking wine and everyone's a little lightened up, but you start talking and you just have an excellent reputation. everyone knows you. People say what an amazing winery it is. And I just think that's huge. I mean, your reputation is something that you can't create. You've got it. And I love that. Absolutely love it. You know, you had said that your father knows everyone, but I think you also know everyone. It's kind of like it started, you started out saying, okay, I've got this mission because of this, but it transformed where now it's like everyone knows you, your reputation, what you're doing in the community. So it's definitely carried on. You know, I just hear bits and pieces when we're up there, and whatever you've done some major things right. So whatever you're doing, you need to keep doing it because you're doing things right.
That part has been very fun for me. I do quite a bit of traveling now, and I've been different places. I was just in Mexico here a month or so ago, and I was out to dinner at a restaurant and was talking to the waiter that had a winery up in Sonoma County, and there was a table sitting over next to us, and I could tell they were listening to what I was saying. So when he left, the people came over and says, "You're Steve Ludson, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "Oh, we belong to your wine club." And it was so funny because I started talking to them, and then there was a couple tables over. They came over too and said, "Yeah, we've been, hearing the stuff about the wine. Our waiter said something about your winery." And I asked him who it was, and he thought it was Ludson. So we are also in your wine club. I thought, oh, I can't believe this. And I'm in Mexico. There was probably 25 tables, but 2 of the tables were club members of mine, and that's happened to me on several different occasions. And I've even had phone calls at 1 o'clock in the morning where somebody's calling me from a bar or a restaurant, and they brought in a bottle of Ludson and set it on the table, and somebody else walked in that was also a club member, had a bottle of Ludson, and walked over and said, "Hey, where'd you get that wine?" And so they both get talking, and they get a couple of drinks, and they call me up on the phone at home and stuff like that. So yeah, I love that. It's been a lot of fun.
So I want to ask you, is there anything you would have done differently? You look at your life and you say, gosh, I know I'm at this point. If I could have done it over again, I would have done this differently.
If I had to do it over again, there's things that I passed on that I wished or things I sold, properties that I owned that I sold, and I wish I had kept it because I see what's happened with it, or maybe something that I bought that if I had to do over again, I wouldn't have bought that. If I'd have thought it through more in my younger years, I probably wouldn't have made the quick decision, and I wouldn't have wasted time doing that. So there's a lot of that goes on, I think, probably in everybody's life. Mm-hmm. But I think probably one thing that I think about is what I already mentioned. I would spend, even though I spent a lot of time with my parents on the ranch and everything, I would probably try to spend even more time with my parents. And that's one thing I recommend to people, no matter what your relationship is like with your father or your mother today. At some point it's over, and I don't see too many people that when it's over that say, "Oh, I couldn't stand him." And there are a few relationships like that, but most everybody after you pass on or the family passes on wishes that they would have had a better relationship, wishes they would have spent more time, wish they would have done this, wish they would have done that. And so now's the time, now's the time to take that extra step. And it's not, it's really not even with your parents. I'll tell you, one time when I was younger, I had a business relationship with a fellow, and he was very irritating to me, and he was very condescending in his talking, and I kind of got mad and blew up at him. About 15 years later, the bank that I banked with, I walked in, and he was the manager of the bank. And I said to myself, "Oh, man, am I in trouble?" But the guy was very older, very mature then. He was, "Hi, Steve, how you been?" But I really learned something from that. So it's not just trying to be good, spend time with your parents. It's trying to find the good in every person that you cross. Whether somebody pulls out in front of you in a car, you can get upset and, flip on the bird or say something to him, but all you're doing is upsetting yourself. It'd be, you got to think, well, he probably didn't see you, or something went on, or he's having a bad day. Try to find the good in every person. And I think if I live my life over again, I would work on that even more, because life is so much more rewarding finding the good in something than the negative.
Amen. I think you get to a point where you really get that. Part of it's maturity. But unfortunately, I think there are people that don't get to that. And I think, that's a problem. But it's just like being on a whole different level. And, it's really about evolving and becoming more conscious. And, that's impressive. Emotional intelligence, right? It's huge. I think a lot of times we see a situation or somebody reacts and we have no idea what's going on in their life. And it's really a good reminder to just take a step back and to give people the benefit of the doubt. You get so focused on trying to get it done as compared to really the process of getting it done. It's like people are so focused on just getting to that result versus really the journey to get to that result.
Yeah, enjoy every minute that you're here and try to enjoy everybody you can and find the good in people, and life will just be much more rewarding. I think that one of the things my dad had said to me and my mother both, has said to me when I was younger, is do unto others as you want done to you. And if you think about that, there's been lots of times where I remember this one day I was walking with my attorney come out of his house. He had me come over and look under his house to see about remodeling if the foundation was strong enough and the bracing and all this stuff. And I did that. And we walked outside, and a little old lady was coming down the front steps, and she says to Les, she says, do you want a dresser? Do you need a dresser? And Les goes, no, I don't need a dresser. And I say, oh, I do. And she goes, oh, great, come on upstairs, I have one. So I went upstairs, and there was this old, funny-looking dresser, right? And I said, come on, Les, give me a hand, let's carry it and put it in my truck. And he looks at me, he goes, what? What are you going to do with this dresser? This seems ready to fall apart. I go, oh, it's beautiful. Come on, give me a hand with this. We take it down, we put it in my truck, I tie it down as I'm driving off. He said, no, really, what are you going to do with this dresser? I said, Les, I'm going to take it to the dump. I said, think about it. The poor little lady was trying to organize her house. She was having a great day, and this dresser just didn't fit anymore, and she wanted to get rid of it. Who was she going to get to carry it down the stairs? And she wanted to feel like, because older people do, like somebody was going to take this dresser and not just throw it away. Well, I didn't want her to feel bad, so I just took the dresser. I think I did give it to somebody, or my sister. I forget what I did with it. But the point is that try to find the good, because what you'll do is you'll be repaid over and over and over, not by the same person. I've never seen that lady again. She hasn't done anything for me. But I've been repaid 1,000 times over from other people just by being nice to people like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of things you're talking about are spiritual principles, and whether you acknowledge them as spiritual principles or life principles, it's really about, seeing a bigger picture and, even the peace of mind you have within yourself. I think it's awesome to hear you share that, and that you really get it, and that you get reciprocity, that you really get the meaning to life. And, I think one of the things that's so fascinating to me when I look at people that don't just have money, but really have a much bigger sense of having an amazing life and really caring about people is, they have lives that you really look at and say they've got an amazing life. And it's not just about the money. It's really about what they've done, the principles they live by, and, becoming a better person. And, it ends up making this world a much better place.
Yeah, exactly.
So what opportunities do you see? Somebody's listening to this conversation, and most of the people, listen to these, they oftentimes want to be financially free, or they want to create a profitable business. So what advice would you give to people that really want to get to that next level? And what are some of the opportunities that you see that people could be benefiting from? Perhaps even some of your vision.
Well, I think some real important things in business today is teamwork. It's developing a team. What it takes is everybody on that team playing for the same goal. So what I try to do in all my businesses is I try to build teamwork and consistency. I listen to everybody's opinion. There is no such thing as a bad opinion. We're doing this together. We're going to build a company together. And when the company grows, the people grow. The people make more money. They get bigger bonuses. They get more vacation time. And so they feel part of it. They feel like they're really part of the team as opposed to just being an employee for a company. And I think that people that are in business today, if they work more on bringing the people along that work with you, the company will automatically grow.
So how do you do that? How do you motivate your team members to say, you're not just an employee, get in at 8, leave at 5. You're really a part of a team. And some of the things that people can do to actually get their employees to become team members, stakeholders, people that are really committed to the company.
Well, I think, a lot of it is goals. I think that people, as fast-paced lives as everybody lives today, people want things now. And what I've learned I've had to do, and what I've learned to work with my teams, is I set short-term goals, mid-range goals, and long-term goals, and there's rewards at the end of that. That theory works in anything you do in life. It doesn't even have to be with people. It works with training a dog to be a professional dog. You can teach them all these tricks. If you set little short-term and mid-range, long-term goals and they get rewarded for that, then they'll do it again. So what I do is I try to set up goals for my whole team. I actually have, in my companies, I have what's called team bonus. And then that team bonus is also broken down into phases of individual bonuses so that everybody's working together for one common goal, but yet they still have an opportunity to succeed on their own as well. And it brings everybody together. If you're just setting goals and talking about ideas, but the only person that's reaping the reward from it is the owner of the company or the owners of the company, people lose interest. You need to bring everybody along with you. You should be proud to see that your vice president is now president or your stock boy is now, a checker. And when they move up and they can take on more responsibility, they need to have a better lifestyle. They need to be able to see, geez, I've known Steve for, 35 years, and I remember when he didn't have anything and he started and he's got all this. That's one side of the coin, but the better side of that is say, I remember when, Joe went to work for Steve years ago and he was driving that old pickup. I remember coming in here, and now he's got that house down off Sonoma Avenue there, and he's got a nice new car and beautiful house, 2 kids, and say he's, I know he's going on vacations all the time, and then people want to work for you because that's how I built the team I have is by having teamwork. Other people see that. People call us on the phone and say, geez, if you ever have an opening, I would love to come to work for you. It's a chain reaction that just goes around and around and around. So if you apply those principles in business, I just don't think you can fail.
Wow, that's amazing. I think we could do a call just on that subject. I didn't even know your philosophy, but I could just tell from how the people that work at your winery are that you do something that really brings them together as a team. And I think that's huge. You're creating basically a legacy to where people have something to look forward to look up to, and then they can reap the rewards for it. It's awesome. It's so exciting.
An example to that would be, just to make a real simple example, would you imagine going to the gym every day and working out and all you got was sore and you never made any gains, you never lifted any more weight, and you couldn't run any longer on the treadmill? I mean, how long could you do that? Pretty soon you'd just give up, wouldn't you? I mean, think about it, It's pretty simple, really.
It's like pain, no gain.
Exactly.
You could actually write a book on that. I mean, seriously, there's a lot of people that could benefit from this information. And a lot of people talk about it, but there's not a lot of people really doing it, in the trenches doing it. I think, as a business owner, you always want to have your employees motivated. I like having quarterly bonus systems, but I love ideas like that because when you get people to where even though their name is not on the front door, they are acting like it is. And that makes all the difference.
I start thinking back on scenarios that have come up. I remember one time this gal I had working for me, she called me on my extension in my office and said, "Can I come down and talk to you?" And I said, "Sure. What's going on?" She goes, "I'll be right down." So I came down, and she started ranting and raving about the manager, saying, he's just so hard to deal with, and he's this and he's that, and all this kind of stuff. And so I said, "Okay, well, what else do you have to say?" She goes, "That's it." She goes, "You need to do something about it." I said, "Well, first of all, you've got the wrong approach. I don't ever want somebody to come into my office and complain to me about somebody else. If you want to come into my office and talk to me about some of the things that you see going on that we could work on to make better, I'm all ears. But I'm not trying to find the negative or the fault in anybody. I don't work that way. So if you want to start over and we can take this in a different approach and talk about how we can make things better here, or how you can approach this person, or how he can approach you, how we can make that work, I'm ready to go." And she says, "Well, of course that's what I want." I said, "Okay, then let's do it." But I said, "I wanted to remind you now, this is just a learning thing. I'm not going to bring it up anymore. Remember that now. Never come to me or never go to anybody in life to find fault in somebody. Go to them in the way to make their life better, to give them examples and things." And now everything's great. She's happy, everything's just fine. But it was just that negative thought, that negative thing, and she dwelled on it inside herself to the point where she had herself so worked up. And I was like, what the heck?
Well, you nipped it in the bud, and it's awesome that you showed up that way. She's probably never had a manager or boss who's been able to do that. Wait a minute, look at the situation. What can you learn? What can you do differently? What are some constructive ideas? It gets her thinking in the future. Wait a minute. I'm not looking at the problem, I'm looking at the solution, which then makes your life easier and it makes your company run a lot smoother.
Exactly.
Anything else other than team building that you could see as opportunities?
Well, let's see. Well, I could think of little things that my father had told me when I was growing up and stuff, you know. He always had these little comments. He said to me one time, I guess it started, there was an old fellow that worked on the ranch for my father, and he must have been 6'6", and he had hands, 3 times the size of mine, and he had a real deep southern kind of drawl. And he used to always say to me, he'd say it over and over and over to me, he'd come up, we'd walk up, and I'd just be a little tight guy, and he'd say, what you gonna be when you grow up, little boy? A cowboy preacher? He had this thing like that. And he said it so much, it used to drive me crazy. But it stuck in my mind. And my dad, when I got older, he says, what are you going to be when you grow up? I said, I don't know. He says, well, I'll give you some advice, and you don't even have to decide, who you're going to be or what you're going to do or anything. Mm-hmm. And I said, what's that? So one of the key things to life, son, he says, is it's who you put yourself around, who you associate yourself with. So he says, for example, if you wanted to be a professional baseball player, would you hang out with a drug addict? And I said, well, no. He said, if you want to be a drug addict, you wouldn't hang out with a baseball player either, right? And I said, no. He says, so if you want to learn something, you want to hang around with the people that are the best, that are willing to teach you and willing to work with you, that have experience. You want to hire people that are smarter than you. And I didn't get that one at first. I got the part over time. I figured that out about hanging around the right people, because even in a relationship, you can fall in love with anybody. You can become, with my personality, be friends with anybody. But if I start following their patterns of bad behavior, then it's a problem. So that was a thing that I learned real early in life, was who you hang out with. What are they doing? And it doesn't matter. It's not finding negative or fault in somebody. If you want to deal drugs, well, then go hang around those people. You can go right down the path, So I thought it was a really, really interesting part of growing up, is learning that.
So I guess my question is, I'd love some insight from you about a person that wants to become more successful. Regardless of the profession, you have people that say, I'd love to get to that next level. So what do you tell people that are like, what can I do to be more successful? Do you have any input on that?
Well, I'll tell you how I did it, is I was always very curious about why somebody was successful, or why they were so good at electrical work, or why they were such a good baseball player, and I had a lot of enthusiasm for it. So I would always say to them, I can't believe how you can hit that baseball. How do you do that? Or I can't believe how fast you can wire one of these houses. What are the tricks that you're doing? And people, the most successful people in the world, like to feel good, just like today when I'm talking to you and you're telling me all these nice things about myself. It makes me feel good for all the hard work I've done. So I want to talk more. You'll keep me in a conversation. We can stay on the phone for days. So if you approach a person that you see is doing well, and you thank them, and you say, God, I'm just amazed at how well you're doing at this, or how good you are at that, you'd be surprised how many people will take the time to show you. Mm-hmm. And that's really the key. It's how you approach that person. Mm-hmm. It has to come from your heart. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely.
You have to truly be impressed with what they're doing.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. And, I find that you have to really be interested in somebody, listening to their stories and listening to where they are and what has gotten them to the next level. I find it fascinating. And I think that when a person really is interested, that helps too. I know that even doing these interviews have had an impact on my life and really gotten me to just see even more things than I've seen up to this point in my life. So let's just say you've gotten to a certain point in your company and you want to go to the next level, you want more responsibilities. What are a few things or recommendations that you would give to that person?
Well, I think one of them is that you need to listen to everything everybody says. And to add to that is, I always tell people there is no such thing as a bad idea. So sometimes it's very hard to listen to somebody come in and talk to you about an idea they have and say they've told you 35 ideas in a row and none of them were any good. But I always tell people that there's never a bad idea. And what happens is I've had people tell me 35 bad ideas and then come up one that's a brainstorm that makes the whole team a bunch of money. It's just a whole other level. So I think that is a really important thing. Part of that on that same thing is, in order to move up in a position, you have to grow. no matter what you're doing in life, in order to go to the next level, you have to mature, you have to grow. And the only way you can do that is if you realize that you don't know it all. If you realize that you'll be learning on the day you die. There'll be something you'll learn on that day. And the only way you can learn is by listening. If you're talking all the time and you're not giving people the chance to talk and taking it all in, you're not learning.
Mm-hmm.
So those two things, there's never a bad idea, and listen and listen and listen. Those are two very, very, very important things. I see the third one is probably the one I've touched on. I probably could tell you 10, but the third one is just being positive with people. If you're in management especially, try to find the good in everything somebody's coming in. Try to take their ideas and let it be that person's ideas. Maybe you can add to it, but it's still their idea. Don't try to steal the show because you do know more than that person. Like, for example, I could know how to make this wine a certain Merlot, and I have somebody that I hire as an assistant winemaker, and they come in and they have some ideas. I'm going to try to find one thing, maybe two things there that's really good about that, and I'm going to give them all the credit for the whole wine.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to give them some other points and things that's going to make it better for them, because I know if they come away real excited and real positive and believing in that wine, that they're playing a big part in it, the whole company's going to do better. He's going to excel, or she's going to excel. The whole team's going to excel. So it's like giving people credit. Give people credit for something. It doesn't have to be a big thing. You'd be surprised at how much people will gleam and glow in life with just some credit.
Mm-hmm.
So those would be my three things.
So I know you have a lot of events, and I can't wait to see you at one in the future. I hope that you do one of these events again.
In our club, we started developing more and more ways that we can all get together as one big family. I consider everybody in my wine club part of my family.
Well, you know what I want to do? I want to actually get a group of people to come up there and to just stay there and have fun. We've had so many fun times. This time we'll bring a lot more.
I'm definitely looking forward to talking with you again, and if you and your husband get out this way, please call me.
Well, I'm so excited to be able to see you again and connect with you again, and I want to thank you so much for just providing the insight you did, and from the bottom of my heart, you were so inspirational, and you are impacting so many people's lives. So thank you so much for joining us. So there you have it. Wasn't that just unbelievable? There are so many nuggets. I guarantee that if you go re-listen, take notes, you're going to pick up on things you missed the first time. It's that good. And every time I listen to that, I gain nuggets. One of the most powerful ones is how he shares that he uses his subconscious mind, and he didn't even know he was really using his subconscious mind. It just kept coming to him. If you apply one thing that you learned from today's insight, please let it be that. Go and listen to that section. You can also go to millionaireseries.com/106 on how millionaires program their mind. But apply that and see what happens in your life. I guarantee you that if you apply that one insight of really getting into your subconscious mind, of really seeing it in your mind's eye, sleeping on it, and then executing, you're going to be amazed at the results you get. And I've seen that over and over again, so I know it works. So please take advantage of that. It's had so much impact not only on my life, but hundreds of other people's lives, and I know it can on yours too if you apply it, so please do. So again, thank you so much for joining us. Please hit subscribe, and don't forget, please go down and comment. Let me know your biggest takeaway. I love when I do these interviews and you share with me what you really enjoyed, because it gives me more insight on where you need help and what I can do moving forward as far as providing you real value. So make sure and comment. Let me know how you're using it. Thank you so much for attending. This is Annette Bau, host of the Millionaire Insider. All international copyrights are reserved. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed that insight, and more importantly, I hope you apply it, because it'll have such a dramatic impact on your business, your life, and your money. Bye now. See you next time.